Yeah, so enjoy here. Once upon a time, there was a housewife. She knew a story. She also knew a song. She never told the story nor sung the song. So one day when she was sleeping, the story crawled out of her mouth and became a pair of man's shoes on her patio. The song tumbled out too and became a man's coat on top of the shoes. The husband, having worked late, came home that night and asked the housewife, "Who is visiting?" And the housewife said, "What do you mean?" And the husband said, "Well, on our patio there is a pair of man's shoes and a man's coat, so who is visiting?" "I don't know," said the housewife. They flew into a furious argument. In a rage, the husband picked up his blanket and went to go sleep at the monkey god's temple. The housewife, confused, sat up until late that night trying to figure it out. Unable to, she finally blew out her flame and went to bed. Now, all the flames of the village would gather at the monkey god's temple to gossip and discuss the villagers. That night, all the flames were present except one. When that flame finally arrived, they asked it, "Why are you late?" And the flame said, "Well, at my house there was an argument." And the flame said, well, tell us, what did they argue about?" And the flame said, "Well, the housewife, she knows a story. She also knows a song. She never tells the story nor sings the song. So the story and the song, growing angry, decided to take revenge. They became a pair of man's shoes and a man's coat on the patio. The husband, having worked late, came home, asked the housewife who was visiting. She didn't know. They flew into a furious argument. In a rage, he picked up his blanket and came to sleep here, and she only blew me out now, trying to figure it out. This story spiraled all the way down to the husband's ears. When he heard it, he picked up his blanket, rushed back home, knocked on his door. When the housewife opened, he said, "Wife, I finally understand. Now please, tell me your story. Sing me your song." "What story? What song?" she said. Vili, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Such a long time coming. Yeah, that was a story titled "The Story of a Story and a Song." It's actually a translation by A.K. Ramunajan, who just traveled through India listening to different folk tales and then translated them to English and created a book called The Flowering Tree. So when I was in India, I read the story and I was like, gotta start the sets with this to remind us why we do this. And good luck to all the slammers who will be telling their stories and singing their songs today. The next poem. So I used to be a fat boy growing up. I kind of lost the weight, and now in my 30s, it's not as easy to lose the weight anymore. It's coming back, but that poem will come about losing the weight and then gaining the weight again. This one I wrote when I had lost the weight, and it's called Fat Boy B. Never been a thin boy till now. Born so fat, your mama jokes rotated around me like I had my own gravity, like Equator was my belt, like last time I fell in love, I broke it. Like sticks and stones never broke my bones, because this fat soaked everything in. Like words hurt so bad, she asked me what was my greatest fear, and I said, crop tops. Like, it's a joke, right? But it's taken me a quarter of a century to get the punchline. The punchline is me. Punchlines never laugh at their own joke. They just be. Fat boy never picked for the running team. Fat boy never picked for the swimming team. Fat boy never picked for the soccer team. Fat boy never could eat his own skin, so he ate everything else. Like, I'm thin boy now, right? But she asked me, what is my greatest fear? And I said, food and crop tops. Like, fat boy sheds and just picks up new shit to be afraid of. Like, fat boy turn thin, be always fat. Like, I joke, right? It's a PH, not an F, but nobody laughs. And I'm just left clutching onto my belly, wondering if the punchline is in there, if I ate that too. I forget what I eat, when I eat, why I eat, because you can't count heartbeat. Fat boy eat heartbeat, because that's the only thing that keeps him alive. Eating. Midnight snack be Holy Communion. Lunch be him laying himself on the altar be kitchen counter, and Last Supper, and Sylvia Plath laying her head inside a stove and turning herself into a meal, because fat boy understands what it is to be eaten, because thin boy understands what it is to be eaten, because fat boy sheds. He is thin boy now, wearing crop tops and everything, is still eating fear, wondering how fat everybody thinks he's getting. Thin boy thinks he's lost a part of himself, keeps patting himself, hoping to find parts of himself. Thin boy or fat boy or thin fat boy can't find himself, but he is still looking behind dinner plates and kitchen counters and outers. God has got to be fat, or else fat boy life have no meaning except eating. Thin boy keeps eating, fat boy keeps disappearing into his own mouth. There is nothing left. So, fat boy eats that too. Yeah, man, it's poetry is like an interesting thing to do, because it like kind of goes like into the heart of you, right? And sometimes it's really difficult to confront that heart. So I like to set up like characters where I can like confront the heart of me. So I'll set up fat boy and have a chat with fat boy, and I'll set up black boy and I'll have a chat with black boy. I did a series of poems during lockdown and COVID where black boy brought his demons to life. And then the boogeyman came to life, and black boy and boogeyman like were just having chats so black boy could learn to love boogeyman. And so this was like, I think like the third or fourth poem where eventually boogeyman gets ready for a date. Boogeyman tries to say I love you, and a maggot crawls out his mouth. Today, he will pick the carcass from his teeth, will practice smiling, and it will not be stale and decaying, will make a chapel of these catacombs, will make a shrine of his lips. Boogeyman might just use a pickup line. There must be something wrong with my eyes, because I can't take them off you. Then Boogeyman will put his eyes back into their sockets. Be gentle. It's his first time. He is learning the fullness of a heart well loved. His chest drags him to the ground, finds himself in prayer. He is unaccustomed to this weight. His body has had no space for holy, but today, Boogeyman is in love, practices all his tender in front of the mirror, undresses from his monster, unties his intestines, and the butterflies come spilling out. They've been growing inside his belly. Faith wraps around his gut. Boogeyman has started believing in the future. He imagines his children and they are not ghosts. He's learning how to dream, has clawed himself out from the nightmares. Boogeyman is clean as an altar. I promise him, there's nothing in your teeth. He tells me his love will no longer require sacrifice. Boogeyman smiles a sunrise that is a flower in bloom, a joy as wide as a sky with hands to hold you. He says, I love you, and springs a butterfly from his mouth. And all the old gods come to prayer beneath his tongue.
Wow.
So there's a poem that comes after this one that's called Boogeyman Fucks that, that I'm not going to do tonight. But I always figured that it's somewhere. But also there's like a YouTube video of it. Like I got all my friends naked in one room and we did like an orgy thing of like Boogeyman fucking. It was so much fun. Unadvised during COVID though. But I always imagine that after this poem, like Boogeyman does get lucky. So I think I'm gonna do like some kind of sex poems, but they're not really sex poems, but they are sex poems because like anything can be a sex poem. There's one I'm currently workshopping. I'm trying to get it to become like a haiku, but right now it goes: Romeo must die, exclaims Juliet with his head between her thighs. Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna do these poems back to back. I think this is a sex poem. Some people don't think it's a sex poem. And then after that sex poem, it's gonna go into like the morning after. Scratching at scriptures, she's bleeding holy texts again. She has chapters beneath her skin, eyes made of old papyrus, aged tomes behind her eyelids, magic scrolls in her eyelids. I know this temple, this sacred prayer, these meditation beads she has for knuckles. Holy warrior. I've seen her scratch Sanskrit out her nails. Rosetta Stone heart, this tower of Babel she has for a tongue. What does she speak when heaven comes crashing down behind her lips? God. There are days when you are a sprawling city. Tumble out of your bed sheets with last night's graffiti tattooed onto your tongue. Your teeth still gripping onto skin of some name already disappearing on your lips. how your voice doesn't belong to you, how it is a ghost, how your eyelids are tombstones, how this city breathes because your blood floods these streets. There are days when you are a sprawling city and your mother is worried about how much weight you're losing every time you pull yourself together enough to see her. How do you tell her it is not her fault she taught you to give too much, that you are spreading yourself all over walls that won't remember what you feel like or hold you back, so you forget yourself on side streets and pavements and build a city on your skin, hoping that maybe you can lose yourself here. All right, this is the last one before we jump into the slammers, and then I've got more for you in the second half. I would be remiss doing a lot of love poems without also taking into account South Africa, which also is dealing with one of the highest gender-based violence rates in the world. And yeah, let's do the poem. All right. A love poem because ain't nobody writing love poems whilst women are dying. How you gon' fit romance into a coffin, be turning the kisses of a killer into honey. We've got a hive in our stomachs and our locust swarm hearts feast on the butterflies. My lover says she's practicing faith sleeping next to me. And what's the difference between prayer and a lover when both are a war zone? Us men call ourselves altars but turn deity to sacrifice. Aren't we tired of the blood beneath our fingernails, facing a choir of killers in our reflections, sing bloody over the graves in our garden, turn love stories into horror, we're boogeymen, afraid of ourselves. I'm scared of raising a daughter who asks me to check beneath her bed for monsters, and I pull out her father, howling with the moon dripping from my lips, or raising a son who carries our curse, can't say his own name 3 times in a mirror, 3 times in a mirror, us with I love yous bleeding from our jaws that taste like knuckles if we chew long enough, and a silence caught in our throats like accessory to murder. Ain't nobody writing love poems when we're so busy with obituaries. Dear men, there's a plague in our veins that haunts our hearts. The way we love, we breathe another dead woman from our lungs, and how you gonna speak to God with that mouth? Come to prayer in a church where another woman dies in our presence again, and still we do nothing again. It's time we pull ourselves apart and build a temple from our hearts that doesn't have murderer etched into our blood. So this one is called The Birds Are Falling. Too afraid of pleasure, we inherit pain. It is lonely rite of passage to sacrifice ourselves bloody and prostrate on a funeral mountain because endured I must. Sickeningly beautiful because of how well we bruise ourselves, each other, Crows we let feast on our wounds. In time, the worm will devour the bird. It is slow, but the bird is patient. It gives of its wings, provides its bones, because indorda must. The worm will turn dust to dust, will till the ground, unearth the early dead. We too give of our bodies, breaking and snapping, because indorda must. It is peaceful here, cracking masculinity into kindling. Watch it sizzle and burn. We know how to build a fire, how to take life, season our flesh with smoke and salt. We do not account for our sins, still making scapegoat of our fathers who left with the crows, our missing morsels swinging from their mouths. When you return, prodigal, we will sweep you a ululating path to the liquor store, because indorda must. You carry a thirsty pocket knife close to your heart, hungry for blood. All these blades we have for therapists. Another one of the men I love will turn to ghost in a tavern tonight, because indorda must. At the funeral, a vulture will sit beautiful on his coffin. We will rejoice in our plague, say he was a good man, died early enough not to twist himself into one of us. At night, I dream of his corpse. The worms that feed on his good will feast and feast and feast until the earth is belly full, until it opens its mouth and we drip from its teeth, and all us graves will finally laugh. On neo-colonialism, once they are done with our rhinos, they will come for the black man's teeth. Walked into the water and the ocean became me. Spilled the sea into a bathtub and tried not to drown in myself. Dead friends clawed their way up my throat, my wrists, a river I drink from. I tried not to spill the Nile and its ghosts that hold me in their palms. I pried my life from the grasp of a death I recognized. Took shots of whiskey from a bleeding phantom. We danced to Kendrick Lamar and all the other songs about dying black boys. I poured myself out for the homies. My umbilical, it wrapped itself around my throat. My mother was the fire. I do not tell her how many times I have almost died, how much blood I have made an ocean. That is between me and the ancestors. Sacrificed another heart to keep breathing. When will I stop leaking lovers from my fingernails? I have scratched myself raw trying to find the exit wounds. Dodged death so often. Where does the reaper take his tax? Another friend died this year, but this black boy stays defiant. Keep my wrists divinely attached to my arms, carve temples from my spine, mistake myself for holy with these bones made of water. I have come to myself to be baptized, a soggy scripture clinging beneath my fingertips, Sam Cooke running out my mouth. I was born a dying flood. Name a black boy who wasn't. The waters have offered me exorcisms. I'm afraid the hauntings will leave with the memories. So this black boy stays defiant, has started visiting cemeteries, tipping himself into the soil of the new asleep. Tomorrow, come collect these lilacs from these graves. You cannot take them from my mouth, because tomorrow I will not be dead yet. My mother loves me. My mother loves my father. My father and I do not speak. For the sake of my mother's love, I will meet my father for coffee this week. Y'all are just laughing at my trauma. Reminder, your sorrow is not a river. It is not here to drown you. It is holy water, here to baptize you. But if you feel your chest exploding, those are your lungs turning into life rafts. Okay, last poem. Guys, how many of you know about the James Webb Telescope?
Yeah.
Yeah, how dope? It's literally, it literally can see the past. It's a time machine. So the James Webb Telescope is a telescope they started building, I think 30 years ago, after they launched the Hubble telescope, which gave us most of our images. And so when they started building it, the technology for this telescope didn't exist, but they still we're building it. And they were like, we're gonna use mirrors, but we can't just shoot mirrors out into space, because they want to use light to capture the pictures. So they had to figure out foldable mirrors, and then they shot these mirrors out into like 1.5 million kilometers into space, and then it unfolded and it had to go through 344 single point failures for it to unfold, which meant at any point, if it fails, these 30 years of building it fail, the experiment fails. And then they launch it, it unfolds, and it can literally capture light from the beginning of time. We can look into the Big Bang. So I wrote a poem, and it's called Tonight, I am the James Webb Telescope. The James Webb Telescope can capture light from the beginning of time. Most of the galaxies it holds have already died. Tonight, I unfold the mirror of my arms, and memory is a trickster, the sky a gaping mouth, and all my friends are made of stardust. We are 12 years old. My best friend and I clutch onto the ground, watch the clouds sway, drunk of peach schnapps and apple sours. He has not yet tried to catch a train with his chest. I have not yet tried to swallow his dying on the rocks, gasping for breath. Instead, I am 1.5 million kilometers away, floating in the stillness of space, unfolding through 344 single-point failures, existing against all odds and too far to be repaired. I origami my joints into a big bang, an epitaph to a universe that doesn't realize it's dying. I'm dreaming of her again, at her 18th birthday, sneaking kisses in corners beneath a yearning sky, hiding from pursuing cake and candles. She tells me the stars have never looked so bright. I am not yet at her memorial, packing my tears into the back of my throat, betraying my grief with a trembling voice. I have not yet disappeared into the fold of my sheets, grasping at cascading funerals and dominoing caskets settling in the earth, and at the hands of lovers adept at taking their own lives. Tonight, it is a supermoon, and the stars hum of new beginnings, and we must get dressed and sink ourselves from the depression in our beds, wade through the vast expanse of grief. It took 26 years to build the telescope, and what foresight to believe in a technology that did not yet exist. And maybe it is faith that keeps this universe in place and our dreams in orbit. My oldest friend and I sink into the softness of her scars. She tells me her hopes for the future and how these keep her heart beating and her wrists intact. I have not yet seen her lifeless, and the James Webb Telescope is not a prophet, and tonight we do not die. There is laughter coming through the walls, friends return calls. We sing to the moon, and all our graves are empty and sparkling, and all our far away friends are brought home by the night. The James Webb Telescope cannot see beyond the light. We are 12 and we are 18 and we are here and we are now, and we have not yet seen the children we will have or the children we will become, but we write faith into the dark and the horizon, while the horizon it bends to rise behind us, and the telescope is light to our children. And tonight we are all gathered at the beginning of time, and we are a hope to those that are not yet alive. Thank you.